Hello, everyone. Welcome to AllCodeF's episode 235. I'll put the link to the agenda in chat. Yeah, we have quite a few agenda items today. Before we get started, though, one quick note in terms of ACDE housekeeping directly. As you all are aware, Nixo already filled in for me 2 weeks ago on the call, and by all reports did an amazing job there. And we wanted to announce today that Nixo will join me as co-lead of Orcodevs going forward. So a very warm welcome to Nixo in that role. Yeah, I think this is going to be great. And then with that, we can go into the agenda. First up, we have quite a few Glumsdam items, starting with DevNet updates. I think Mario, you had some Val DevNet 4 related updates.
Basically we made a release a couple of days ago with the updated version of EIP 837. And basically it would be nice to hear from clients today if they were able to consume the tests, issues that they have found, if any, just to get a notion of how is everyone doing regarding this release. I think the first question is, was everyone able to consume the tests in the latest release of yields tests? Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, from MedMind.
What issues? Is there any issues that you have found? Number of failure cases or anything worth raising up?
No issues.
What about the rest of the clients?
On Aragon's side, we were able to consume the tests, and we are working on the Val DevNet 4 changes.
Okay, thanks. The rest of the clients get. Do we have anyone from Besu? Red?
On Besu side, no issues. So everything worked as always.
On Wrath side, I don't think any issues either, but I'll let Dragon chime in if so. But I think we're all good.
We are currently implementing them, so cannot confirm. Hope to have something today, maybe tomorrow.
Anything beyond that, Mario?
Do we want to touch upon the topic of 837 yet, or?
No, we have this on the agenda in a bit. So yeah, otherwise, first, any other DevNet related updates or anything to discuss?
I could maybe quickly discuss the progress with the merge DevNet, so ground stream DevNet 0. We have been working with Prism and Geth to get some initial DevNets running, and it's still work in progress. Hopefully tomorrow is the day when we get up and running, but it's almost there.
That's very exciting. That's a
Yeah,
huge
all
milestone.
of our tooling is updated to Alpha 5 now, and yeah, we have the spec sheet with the client images that we can use, that you can use locally as well. I just pasted the link here.
Awesome. Any specific action items for the other clients there, or just in general for people to keep track of?
Yeah, so this is just general to keep track of it. Hopefully, based on the decisions that we make today, we can basically finish up the spec discussion for DevNet Zero, and then it's just implementation questions going forward.
Sounds good. Thanks. I assume there's no further DevNet related topics.
I could
Okay.
just give a quick overview of DevNet 3. It's still running pretty well. We have a gas limit of 60 million that I've increased to 100 million to correspond to the set value that we have for 8037 now. And in general, I think only Aragon still has some issues there, but I think it's not really worth to spend too much time on it and try to get ready for DevNet 4, which we can then merge. But yeah, there's more topics on that when we talked earlier about it.
Sounds good. Then next up, there was a topic about an engine API change. I think there were two separate proposals, PRs number 770 or 786. I think they would be basically two alternatives. They were the PRs were by Mikhail, but I think Stefan, you put the topic on the agenda. I think the idea is that this would ideally roll out together with Amsterdam if one of the two gets chosen.
It would be great to have them implemented for DevNet 4, but it's not necessarily required for the DevNet, so that we then have it ready for Amsterdam DevNet 0 for them working together, because I think it was something that the CLs require from the ELs. And I think there's been quite a lot of work on it in the past. So if Mikkelsen or Potus maybe has an update there, they're more in the topic.
I think Potus just joined. I'm not sure. Potus, would you be ready to briefly talk about the engine API updates?
Wait, sorry, I was just switching from phone to my computer, and I missed Stefan. Are you guys talking about my proposal EIP or so these two EIPs? Amisha is not there. Yeah, okay. So I can briefly say a little bit. The issue is we need to reorg back to a previous head, which on the EL side might be canonical. It was already canonical, but on the CL side, it's actually on a different branch because the payload content is different. So these two EIPs address the same thing, and there's a difference in subtleties on what is the depth of the reorg that is allowed. One EIP allows, forces the clients to support up to 32 blocks height of a reorg, which is more than what we expect to ever need. I think we will never reorg more than just one slot unless there's a very heavily staked attacker or a bug. And then there's this other EIP, this other PR that proposes a reorg up to finalized, which is formally correct for the CL side, but on the other hand, it might pose a problem that is impossible to support on the EL side. So that PR says that they need to reorg up to the finalized checkpoint, the finalized hash, but if you cannot handle such a reorg, then you return an error. Anyway, so I would let the EL devs to, this is a no-op on either side for the CL. The CLs just need to be able to reorg. We already implemented the call to FCU to trigger such a reorg. So this is mostly on the EL side and what's their flavor of what they prefer. So I will let to them to decide which one of the two. So the difference is, as I said, one forces the clients to support up to 32. The other one says you need to support a deep reorg, which is up to the finalized hash. And if you cannot handle it, you just implement whatever you can handle and return an error.
What's the kind of timeline on this? Like how urgently should we make a decision here?
Today.
No, I kind of disagree with Barnabas here, but I guess this depends on the EL devs mostly. But it sounds to me that it's completely irrelevant on making a decision on either side. The client devs will trigger, the CL devs will trigger this reorg in this exact same manner. It's not a breaking change on the API. We would just send the FCU with the payload attributes that would trigger this reorg, and then this EL handles it or it doesn't handle it. So the handling part is the one that needs to be implemented right now. Which one of the two PRs you choose, it doesn't matter really for us.
I see. Yeah, makes sense. Still sounds like it would be nice then at least. That maybe it's not strictly necessary, but would be nice to make a decision. Do we have generally like opinions among the client teams of the preferred approach here?
Yes, I already put my opinion in the chat. I don't care. 786 is the more principled solution. 770 is the easier solution to implement for us. Both are okay. I think the big difference will be in testing. Yeah. So I really don't care, and we should just make a decision.
Sounds good. Do we have any other client team with any preference? Otherwise, yeah, we just pick one.
The difference is that it should be until finalized or until some cap, right? That's the main difference.
Yeah, either until head minus 32 or finalized.
Okay, so like I would prefer having some cap. Can be bigger than 32, can be 256, which is, for example, 1 to 8, which is similar for snap serving, for example, might be even make more sense than 32. But I would prefer to have the cap.
Yeah. Does anyone who would strongly be or would really prefer to not go with the cap approach? Okay. The final just to double check, the cap one is 770, right? Can we confirm this? Also Tony, you have your hand up, maybe?
Yeah, it seems like this cap approach is very simple, but I'm wondering what happens if we hit the cap, because there are actually situations where we could hit it, like at least in theory. And I think POTUS is right that we would just stall. And I'm not sure if this is the best approach. I remember Marek last time said something where the EL has to keep track of what the finalized block is. And depending on that, keeps more state diffs around, just to make sure that we don't fall back into snap sync in such a situation. Like, the cap is probably the easiest thing to do, but it doesn't seem like the correct thing.
Yeah, but if we're doing more than 128 block reorg, then we also have some other problems, right?
I mean, during non-finality, it is a possibility, right?
Exactly. If we have no finality for some period, this is just like if we do the cap, then we have to live with the fact that ELs might not be able to attest to blocks after such big reorgs. And this is something we have to be intentional about.
Photos?
Well, no, not really, because we can always reorg to a different chain. We just cannot reorg within the canonical chain.
But during non-finality, you don't know what's canonical.
Yeah, and would you have the state around? Like if you had to reorg 130 blocks, there's no state around anymore. So
no,
how would you get the state?
We have the state diffs. We can just go
Okay.
to that other block. So the thing is, what we are changing here is whether we can reorg to a previously canonical block. And also the thing that Peritosh is saying is wrong, because canonical in that sense means the block that we have currently as head. So we right now we cannot reorg to an ancestor of our current head, and this changes it. So we can reorg to ancestors of our current head. I don't see any place where we are reorging where we need to reorg to an ancestor of our current head that is not this new speciality of EPBS. In every other case, we have another chain that has some descendant that is within our current chain, but it's not on our current chain itself. So we will happily reorg over there. And that means undoing some blocks and then redoing some blocks and then arriving at this competing chain.
I see. Okay, this explains it. So the question would then be, can all clients do that? Arrive at the state that is like potentially more than 128 blocks in the path?
Right. Photos, you had your hand up, Power?
Yeah, so I think people are missing some nuance here of what these reorgs are. Marius is right that this is a different, so that the EL is supposed to already handle a reorg in which there is actually two branches on the EL. But again, I think people are missing something, which is the fact that this reorg is not going to be triggered network-wide. It'll only be triggered by the next proposer that is trying to propose a block based on a previous payload. Everyone else in the chain will not trigger such a reorg because it will not send an FCU with payload attributes. So this is just simply let the next proposer trigger block production for a previous based on a previous head. And then everyone that gets that payload and gets the next block, it will see on the EL an actual fork, an actual reorg, which can be as deep as it wants. So I really don't see what's the push against just put the cap, your implementation will be the same, implement the reorg up to 32, but let the spec says that you're supposed to implement the reorg up to finalize. The implementation doesn't change. That's why I don't care if this decision is made now or not.
The thing is, ELs need the state at the block where they want to reorg to. So if the reorg is like...
if they don't have it, it's fine. They can just return an error. And the EPBS proposer is going to support, it was going to rely on the next builder being able to propose that block. If no builder supports this, then we're kind of screwed until some EL client can actually make the reorg. But this reorg might happen. If no one supports it, then we just stall, and that's it. That's what for choice tells us.
Why do we need to build on top of a block that is like 128 blocks or whatever?
Because for choice, the guarantees that for choice gives us is just that everything can be reorged up to the finalized thing. In this case, everything that is not finalized can always be reorged out. That is what finality means. That's our finality gadget. We need to change the entirety of consensus in Ethereum if we're not going to support reorgs of anything that is not finalized. And answering to Thomas's question in the chat, by definition, a reorg is proposing a block on top of a previous head.
So just to clarify, this means if I'm a local builder and I don't keep more than 128 statives around, and the reorg is deeper than 128, then I won't be able to propose a block.
That is correct, unless some builder actually gives it to you.
But
you're going to send FCU, and some builders are going to be, if some builder actually manages to propose it, you're going to take that bid.
Okay, then I guess we should specify that somehow, that builders should keep around more statives than just the 128 that I guess most EL clients do.
No. So Tony, we are able to support reorgs up to 90,000 blocks in Geth. We only have the 128 forward state diffs, and then we have this, the data on disk, and then we have 90,000 or 90,000 minus 128. I don't know, reverse state diffs. And what we would do in a reorg that is longer than 128, we would roll back to the snapshot on disk, and then we would apply these reverse diffs to the disk until we get to the point where we are being reorged to. What we cannot do is reorg to something that is longer than these 90,000 blocks. And these 90,000 blocks are chosen because it gives us 2 weeks of non-finality.
Right, but this isn't a critical path now. So I think we should just do benchmarks and see how long it takes to take 90,000 statives from
I can tell you it takes like 4 minutes or something.
Okay, can I briefly interject here? I think this is going too deep. I think this would be best taken offline. So the question then to me seems, I mean, I must say I'm not super deep in this topic. I would personally feel like that it would feel a little problematic to take the cap approach and lock it in today, because I mean it seems like it's probably fine, but given the concerns and the confusion around this topic, then I would rather take it offline and make sure everyone is actually aligned with this. If we want to make a decision today, I think the only option would be to go with the other approach, the finality based one, which seems like the proper solution. Yeah, I don't know. Do people want to take this offline, or do we just want to have it to go with the what's the number 786 today?
So the only problem with 786 is that we might not be able to support it fully, because we at this point we have no, where this happens, we have no real notion of finalized. Like Geth is not storing what the latest finalized point is anywhere. So there might be cases where we don't know if, like, we might just do a reorg beyond finalized if the CL tells us.
Don't you get this finalized hash on the attributes itself?
True. Yeah, we could, but then we would need to go through all blocks and see whether this was before or after? Thinking about it.
Right. So, Marius, would you feel comfortable today blocking in 786, even with those concerns, or what's the situation from Geth's side?
Yeah, we can do it. Well, the problem with putting the cap internally, Putus, is that the testing team will go ham with this, and will create tests that we can then not do because we have the cap.
Right.
Maybe
Oh, go ahead.
this idea, maybe we can leave for test team to test and see how the clients behave, and after that decide on the limit. But either way, we could just choose one number and just see how clients behave.
Postal?
Sorry, it's me. Actually, it's Felix. Just maybe funny. I just wanted to ask, so are we confirmed now that the 786 is going in?
Well, I think we're about to make that decision. I personally feel like it might just be best to basically just like block it, go with 786, but just revisit. I think we have some in-person events next week as well, where maybe if there's some concerns or so that could still be addressed. So with the understanding that this decision could be reversed if there's unexpected issues with it, but just so we have a decision, I would propose we go with 786. Mario?
Yeah, I just wanted to understand a little bit better what is being left upon us. If we don't have a number or a tag against what to test, it doesn't feel like we can validate anything, right? There's always you need a number to verify anything. Well, so one thing that we can also just spec is that we say all clients must be able to do one block reorgs when within the current head, and not even specify the behavior for what happens with reorgs that are longer than one block, or longer than 32 blocks, or longer than 128. So this would be a way of going around this.
So then what does it imply for the decision today? Is it okay if we just say 786 is our candidate, and then if there are lasting concerns, we can revisit, but we log in 786 for now. Anyone opposed to that? Okay, then let's do that. So 786, 78. Sorry. Did I confuse the numbers? I think it's 786. Yes, 786.
I
Marius
confused it. Sorry.
No worries. 786 it is, and yeah, we can continue the discussion there async if there's anything left to discuss. Okay, awesome. Decision made. Next up, Putos. I think there's this new EIP 8237. My understanding is that there are some reasons for why we might want to consider a kind of out of process emergency inclusion to Amsterdam already. So then today we would basically CFI the EIP. Can you give people some context on the situation?
Just a disclaimer. I mean, this needs to be on a fork. It doesn't really need to be in Amsterdam. I think every client has already implemented sync. It is a very minor change, I think so, and it'll make syncing, especially on non-finality, much faster and safer. So let me describe what the change is, and I'm not really advocating strongly to keep it for Glamsterdam. It's just that I think it simplifies our life quite a bit. The reason is that up to now, we sync blocks by, say that we're not finalizing, you spin your node that has been offline for a few days, but the EL side has the full state. The CL side is on a very far away head several days ago, and you still want to you want to follow the chain. You want to download all blocks and follow the chain. Currently, we download everything. We download the blocks that already contain the payload for the execution side. Some clients even download this twice. So what the spec says is that when we download these blocks, we execute the state transition function on the consensus layer, we send the payload to the execution layer to validate, and we continue like this. Some clients don't even send the payload to the execution layer, they validate the block hash themselves. And then they let the execution layer sync on their own, which means downloading the payload yet again. And what I'm proposing is for the CL to not even download the payload at all. We just merged a PR, a change to EPBS, which is 5094, that allows us to execute the state transition function without ever validating the block hash, without ever even seeing the payload. The problem that this brings is that there are some fields on the payload that needs to be in sync between the EL and the CL. Some examples are withdrawals. We need to make sure that the withdrawals that are fulfilled on the CL side match what the withdrawals are on the EL side. Currently, since withdrawals are since we have them as part of the block hash check, then since we are checking the block hash, we are checking that the withdrawals are right, and we have this as a validation on the payload anyways. But if we are not validating the block hash, then we need to have some way of making sure that whenever we get a valid, we actually catch up to head and the EL has catch up to head, and we get that the EL has had a valid execution up to the head, then we need to make sure that everything that was already consumed on the CL side matched what it was consumed on the EL side. So for this, we need a new accumulator on the EL side. It could be on the block header, it could be on the payload, and this accumulator just hashes the previous hash, the withdrawals, the execution request, and so forth with the previous value of the hash. So this means that when we sync to head and we find out that the block was valid and we both, the EL and the CL, have the same accumulator, then the whole chain is valid and all of our validation was correct, even though we never saw a payload. So this requires changes on the EL side, and that's why I opened this as an EIP. I would need input into how difficult it is. On the CL side, this is essentially a it's a very small change. And it would allow us to remove all of the syncing by range on payloads, for example.
Sounds good. Thank you for that context. Have EL, the client teams, already had time to have a look at this? Okay, Panos, thank you for the context. Sorry, I wasn't aware of that. Okay, so then I assume people are aware. I think the main question for today then would be, is there a reason is it worth considering adding this to Glamsterdam yet, or just basically have it wait in line for H-star? Obviously the threshold for adding EIPs after the proposal window has been closed should be high. So yeah, I don't have the context on this. I would be curious if people have opinions on how valuable it would be to consider this in Amsterdam already.
Well, for us it's a no-op because we don't depend on being given the payload from the CL. We have our own sync.
It's not a no-op, Marius. I'm changing the state transition function on the EL. you need to add this accumulator and check the validity of it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. Then not for Glamsterdam.
As far as I can tell, it also involves changing the EL log header and new payload in the engine API.
New payload shouldn't change. If we add it to the payload, it's just the same thing.
Right. Yeah, right. The new payload wouldn't change, just the payload itself would change, yeah.
Okay, so sounds like, I mean, given that Protos yourself also weren't actually, sorry, I think I misunderstood this in the lead up. Given that you yourself also don't necessarily think this isn't this high value for Amsterdam already, and if there's skepticism from the EL side as well that it amounts to that level, then I think we just by default add it to the list of PFI'd HSI EIPs for now, and yeah, and some extra context by Barnabas in the chat as well. Sounds good. Anything else put us to add to that EIP then? From your side?
No, it's just requesting EL devs to look into this because it is really a matter of safety. Like when syncing on the case of non-finality is something that we have had trouble even testing. The solutions we had is to agree, coordinate on an unfinalized checkpoint, and then have our clients like trying to be pointed to an unfinalized checkpoint and try to sync from there, which requires, again, like dealing with these sort of meetings and agreeing on what the checkpoint would be and these kind of crazy things, whether this would just bring us back to syncing speeds pre-merge, which I think people should understand how much of a game changer it is to sync for us without downloading the payload and having tiny blocks to execute.
Sounds good. Awesome. Then I think that's all for now then on this EIP. Then yeah, sorry for misplacing it in the Amsterdam section. Next up then on Amsterdam, the last main item is EIP 8037 testing concerns. I think Mario, you wanted to bring this up.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna share the comment that I posted. Basically, it's a summary of the things that we found during the last sprint, where we tried to make the release, which happened at the start of this week. We hit a bunch of issues during that, and I think what the main purpose of us like highlighting these issues is that we want to make sure that everybody understands what we found, and everybody is okay with us continuing with the EIP as is. And basically, I mean, there were several issues. One of the main ones that I would like to highlight first is the amount of tests that broke and required changes. So basically, around 30% of the tests, I would say, had to be updated in some form for us to be able to run them and fill them for you guys to consume. This is due to the new account creation and the new block gas limit interaction of the transactions with this new EIP. We thought that it was basically concerning because while I mean it's a simple perhaps a couple of changes per test, it feels it feels like not common for an AP to break this amount of tests or require this amount of changes for a test. What I wanted to highlight is that perhaps this could manifest itself in some other ways, right? After the fact, when the EIP is finally live in mainnet, perhaps interactions with contracts, etc. So I think it is worth highlighting that this is breaking an unusual amount of tests. The Another thing that we found it really hard is like now with the state gas dynamics that were introduced, we normally have to specify gas limits to be able to verify edge cases on gas consumption, right? So if we have a test case where the test is supposed to consume and run out of gas specifically at a certain point or during a opcode operation, this is very hard to do now, because now we have the reservoir interactions happening. So I would say that we have fixed most of the cases, but we're still worried that we have to really double check that we have not made any pre-existing test cases inefficient because of this change. That's one concern. Also, I mean, this will require for us a lot more time to process, to be honest. We do not, at this very point on the stage of the devness, we do not feel confident about the amount of coverage that we have achieved with our tests. And another point is we have not sufficiently covered the edge cases of the refunding mechanisms for this EIP. Basically, there's a lot of bullet points that describe the refunding mechanisms in this EIP, and we still need more time to fully coverage to achieve the full coverage that we want to with this EIP. And I think lastly, the things that we still have to resolve, and some members of the other teams can chime in also, is that the benchmarking is going to be more difficult, because one of the key controlling aspects of the benchmarking that we do is that we need to control perfectly the block gas limit, right, for the setup of the benchmark test. And this is now directly related to how the state opcodes are charged for the transactions. So this makes our lives much harder. We have to plan on how we are going to modify the benchmarking test. Still, we have not resolved this issue, and we still have to think about how we are going to resolve it. We have more issues that I think, I mean, simpler issues, but it's good that we raise these points, so we get to discuss them, get to see if this is sufficient concern for us to ask for a simplified version of the EIP, or is it too late in the process? Yeah.
Yeah, I would also have some comments on this, but Andrew, maybe you go first.
Yes, so I think indeed 8037 ended up to be very complicated. So probably on par with the headliner block access lists. So I think we should keep its salient features and simplify it when we can, where we can, without compromising like its structural soundness. So to me, just having the state gas limit to be derived, like to be just hard coded like it is on Bell DevNet 3 is fine. We can always like make it dynamic later and readjust it later, and maybe have a small fork or whatnot, but I would keep it simple, but logically sound.
And Marius?
Yeah, so I think it makes no sense to have this 8037 with fixed gas costs, because that really defeats the purpose of 8037. What we would just instead do is pull it out and set a static gas cost for how these how state producing operations cost, how much state producing operations cost. The problem with this is we want to massively increase the gas limit with block access lists and the move to 60 megagas per second. We can, in theory, handle at least 300 megagas. block. So if we set the cost as if we have 300 megagas and we stay at 60 megagas, then all of the costs for users will 5x. So we can only really change the gas costs as long as we also change the gas limit in the same at the same time. So I think it makes no sense to have this static gas cost in 8037. Either we do 8037 properly, or we decide to pull it out and just 5x all of the gas costs, or maybe even more, and then go to 30 million.
Maria?
Oh, sorry, can you hear me? So
Yes.
I think I would advise against pulling it out. So I think so the decision between a fixed gas cost and completely pulling out is EIP, I think is the difference between remaining at the current block limits versus maybe trying to guesstimate a bit better in hindsight what the average gas limit will be between Amsterdam and Egota. Because on Egota we could update this again if we go with the fixed cost per byte. I agree with Marius that having the dynamic one is nicer because gives us more flexibility on how we increase the block limit. Another kind of like middle ground would be some sort of like preset schedule where we say we will go through these gas increases between Amsterdam and Agota and try to have either a middle ground anchor that maybe at the beginning will be too expensive and at the end will be too cheap, so it will kind of compensate, or we even do something like BPO style forks where we just have a schedule for increasing both the gas limit and the cost. I do think any of these options are better than not doing 8037 at all, because that means we cannot increase the block limit.
Yeah, maybe just before I get back to Andrew, from my side, I would just say that given that the theme of Amsterdam is mainly around scaling, and that without any changes to state creation cost, we basically have this shared understanding that there is no real headroom for scaling beyond where we are at basically now already with the E70 changes. So that to me means that basically Amsterdam will need to have some version of this or some version of state changes. I would maybe personally just take these flagged concerns. This is kind of the third round, I think, now of concerns that we had. We had the breakouts where we already tried to simplify. There were some other attempts there. It really does seem thorny to get to a better version. Doesn't mean it's not possible, but I would say that maybe we should just going also into next week and some of the work there, just basically make it a priority to try to find basically the simplest possible version that we feel is realistic given the circumstances, but not today maybe I would try and I don't think it is productive to specifically try to find a concrete solution today. I think the design space is too complex for us to discuss this live on the call now. But I still think, yeah, if there's concrete comments now, I think that's fine. But I would otherwise just say let's flag this topic as something important. Andrew, do you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, so yeah, I agree with Maria, and we all already have a precedent. We have the BPO schedule, so I think that cost per state byte can be static, but with a schedule. So we can. I don't see a problem with that. If it makes our lives simpler, then there is already a precedent.
And Anders?
Oh yeah, I can just mention that I have a research post where I present such a schedule for changing the gas price as one of the options to do this. And I would also like to mention that this dynamic price is not a critical feature of the EIP because it's still a guessing game where we try to guess, the demand elasticity for states. So it's not like having this dynamic change with the gas limit ensures that we get the exact price that we want. It's not like that at all. So if we do, for example, some sort of where we can manually make adjustments along the way, then we are probably in a better place than if we have this dynamic. So it's a matter of complexity there.
Sounds good. And maybe if you can find the link to post it in chat, I think that could be helpful for people. Yeah, again, I think for now, really,
Sure.
I think for today, mostly just about flagging the issue one more time so people are aware that this still is not fully resolved. Any last comments on 8037 for today? Otherwise, I would move on.
I just have a quick question just to make sure. So how does this impact VolDevNet 4? So VolDevNet 4, we're still doing the dynamic cost, right? It's just the test coverage is not as wide. Is the case?
Maybe I can say something here. I think I feel like we should stick with ValDevNet 4 as the current spec is, and any other changes we can discuss next week and follow that up either during next week or after next week. We did add, I think, around 208 unique tests following from ValDevNet 3 to ValDevNet 4 specifically for 8037. So we did already add significant coverage, but yeah, it was very rushed and needs more eyes still.
Sounds good. Anders, do you have your hand up yet or again? Anders? Otherwise, Peter?
Oh, hello. Yeah, I was one of the people who like flagged this. So, Steele like sat down and talked about like all of the complicated problems, and we like went through the IP to try and like get to grips with it. I think the big concerns we had on like a sort of conceptual level, I know that Mario's talked about the practical situation, is that firstly, this is like a transitional EIP. Like in the long term, we want to do proper multi-dimensional gas pricing, and the concern part of the concern is that there's a lot of complexity in 8037, and it's not clear that that complexity is going to stay into the world of multidimensional gas pricing when we don't like have that much of a grasp on the final design. And I'm worried that some of the quite complicated mechanisms related to reservoirs could be designed differently. And it's just got really complicated. Another class of problems that came up was that I, after reading the IP, flagged that some of the gas cost numbers related to how much bigger does the, because there's some numbers in there that say how much bigger does the database get if you if you do a certain operation, if you add a storage key, if you add an account. And I wasn't sure if those numbers were correct. And so there's also a little bit of a concern about whether the EIP has had enough eyes on it. And so I just wanted to like get a feel for where people are, because this EIP is just turning out to be a lot of implementation complexity, a lot of technical complexity, and I really don't, and I think there's just a bit of concern that if we commit to that, we're committing to adding a lot of complexity that is stuck forever because it's part of the history of the chain. And so if it was like an EIP, if this was an EIP that was like transitional and was turning out to be really simple to implement, we'd entirely be on the side of implement it and like we'll fix it properly with the multidimensional gas pricing. But the experience that we have seem to be having is that people are running into lots and lots of problems. And if we're going to go through that much pain, we kind of want it to be for a permanent solution rather than like this transitional solution before we go to proper multidimensional state gas pricing in presumably the next fall.
So just as a counter to that, I think most of the complexity or all of the complexity of 8037 is actually within the metering within the EVM, and that will not change between 8037 and whatever fully multidimensional gas thing we're going to decide on. The thing that's going to change is how are these reservoirs collected, and how do we put stuff in, and how much do we put back out? So basically the outer frame of the EVM, but not within the EVM. So this is kind of my counter argument why this is, for me, this is a first step to the fully multidimensional gas spec, because the metering that we need to do in the EVM is not going to change. And also the dimensions that we're going to add are likely not inside the EVM either, right? Except maybe for state access, everything else, call data, whatever is outside of the EVM.
So can I just add, like, on the transitional part and also the complexity part? So I think it's not helpful to say things are complex without stating specifically where things are complex, because I think what is happening with 8037 is that for testing, the complex part is a completely different part from what is complex for clients and implementation side. So my understanding is that for testing, the complex part is the dynamic cost per byte. Okay. While for client implementations, the part that is giving the more complex or is giving more work is actually the multidimensional metering part. So separating regular gas from state gas. Okay. And so on those two features, so this EIP is mainly these two features. The feature of the multidimensional metering, as Marius was saying, is definitely not transitional. Like, we need to have that to be able to better manage state and then do the longer term full pricing thing. Like, if we are not separating, if we're not calculating how much state gas is being used, we cannot price it. So all that work from the client side is not transitional. It's something like all the issues we are facing, we are already resolving them down. So when we introduce new dimensions, it will be much simpler. Okay. Where I sort of agree on the transitional part is the dynamic cost. So the dynamic cost is the part that is giving the most headache to the testing side, from my understanding. And that part would be fixed or would be better implemented in a more long-term pricing. And on that part, I think we can discuss better alternatives, but I would really strongly argue against the idea that the whole EIP is transitional. There are a lot of things that we are implementing here that are really important and will be important going forward.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think again, I really don't think it would make sense to try to push for any changes in any form today. I think it's really just about saying, yes, let's revisit this. It doesn't yet seem like in a place where we are comfortable, we are high conviction that it will remain in its current shape. Okay, perfect. Then I think we can go to the next agenda point for now. Well, there was one more agenda point for Amsterdam, but this one I think I just want to briefly mention. Last call for mascot selection for Amsterdam. So do go to the agenda if you want to participate there. And then we can move on to the Hegota related items. We have two EIP proposals there for PFI. The first one is EIP 8163. And that was proposed. Yeah, 8163, the extension opcode. Do we have the author on the call?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Piotr. I work at the Monopt Foundation. I'm here to intro EIP 8163, which reserves AE as an extension opcode. So the AP asks to agree that Ethereum EVM will not use the AE opcode as a valid instruction, and that it will remain equivalent to invalid. The idea is that AE would be reserved for other EVM implementations to use for features requiring new opcodes, without risking becoming incompatible because of the conflict using conflicting opcodes, right? And if new features prove to be successful outside Ethereum, the idea is that they could be ported back. And well, that is really basically it. I'll paste the link to the EAP and IFMAC thread in the chat for details soon. And my first ask is, are there any concerns with the proposal? Second, what would be the best way to formalize such a commitment? Should I just go ahead and propose for inclusion in Agota? And if not, what other options are there? Yeah, sure.
So to jump in, thank you, Piotr. Actually, just a quick comment there from my side. Unfortunately, I'm not super up to speed of the details anymore, but we actually a year ago had some discussions on Orca devs regarding similarly back then there was this roll call effort, and out there came this idea to, I think back then was to formalize blocking off some precompile ranges for exclusive L2 use. And I think we did that through some meta EIP of sorts. Would have to look back to the details there again. I think we also already started discussing back then blocking off opcodes. It's obviously a bit more committal because there's a limited opcode range versus with precompile addresses, it's kind of free to do. But I think so basically there is precedent in this direction. So in principle, this should be possible, and should maybe then follow a similar approach to this precompile topic. But yeah, of course, the specifics of whether we're actually ready to do so would then be part of the H-star governance process, I would say. Yeah, any other client comments on this now?
Yeah, which number was it? 8E or something?
The number of the opcode of the EAPS AE. I posted something in the chat, but it doesn't seem to have gone out. I'm not sure why.
Did you maybe DM?
Yeah.
I can see your comment, by the way, Piotr.
Okay. So it's just grayed out.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to me that this might be better in the F range if we still have something in the F range, but yeah. Otherwise, I'm totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't much, logic behind the choice of the AE. It just seemed like least obtrusive, away from any parts of the range that is interesting further. But if there's like counter proposals, then yeah, I think I encourage everyone to maybe leave them in the IFMAC thread. And F range is, yeah, it is pretty crowded. And sorry, Ansgar, I didn't quite catch your suggestion about the governance process. Is it should we just go ahead and PFI this?
Yeah, I think in general it can't hurt to just say we put out PFI this, and then closer through the decision process, if we think that it should have a different form or whatever, we can always make corrections. But this way it doesn't just drop off. So I think PFI is reasonable here for now.
Okay, sweet, makes sense. And thank you very much. That's it from me. There are no other comments.
Perfect. Thank you. And then we have Greg, who wanted to directly propose EIP 7979, but also wanted to, I think, talk about one or two other EIPs in connection with that. Are you on the call?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to put these in today, bring them up, and propose them. And sometime in the next couple weeks, have a breakout so that 2 weeks from now we can start to consider them. We can push that schedule out. I don't know when we're actually going to close off this stage of the process, but I want to get it going. So it's a very simple proposal so far as the interpreter goes. You can pretty much read the first several lines of the abstract. You could almost implement it from there. We've implemented it. I'm not sure how many times. I think at least 3 times in some clients. So it's simple to do. We know how to do it. So it's very low risk from that point of view. So if you're only down to technical considerations, I don't think that's a very difficult discussion. If you're still not understanding the value or have other motivational issues or wanting to understand things, I factored most of the motivation out into that higher level informational EIP because over the years there's just been any number of things that someone hasn't understood, and I don't blame anyone. This topic spans everything from interpreter design to graph theory and everything in between. So, and then the third one is if somebody really wants a lot more instructions with more power, there's a very stripped down version of EOF functions that I would prefer not to propose until a future fork, so that this very simple proposal can get in first and pave the way, because this is pretty much the minimum that everyone's going to need. So
good.
That's what I have to say right now.
Sounds good. Thanks, Greg.
I don't
Yeah.
know if there's any questions on that people like to bring up now. Either on proposal or schedule going forward.
Yeah, so is this I know there have been a number of proposals over the years. Is this the preferred format that you think is better at this stage?
Everything before EOF is basically dead. Has been for a long time. EOF is still there. So far as I know, it has no champions. So it's on life support at best. So this is pretty much a resurrection and reworking of EIP 2315 from long ago, attempting to answer all of the criticisms there that I felt were legitimate, and in the informational EIP, just answer all the questions that came up there and through the years that seem to need answering. And there are, of course, discussion threads on the magicians and I would really like to hear there or one-on-one or on the breakout from people who are just really opposed to this, because over the years, there's been certain people who've just been really opposed, and I'd like to understand why and see if there's changes that'll make a difference, or if the opposition is essentially unresolvable, and I'd be better off pulling the proposal now, rather than put, more months of work into it.
Maybe I can speak a bit on that because I was pretty opposed to the first one, and I was okay with the EOF. But what changed for me there was definitely Solidity putting their weight behind it. I think that was the main reason why we removed the first one out of the fork, is because Solidity said that they're not going to use it. And I'm not opposed to the idea. I think the idea is pretty good, and it's necessary. But if no one is going to use it, then it's just technical debt that we are introducing to the protocol. With EOF, that was different because Solidity said that they are behind EOF and that they are going to use it. So I would really like to have Solidity's opinion again on this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll certainly invite them to the breakout call. There's a difficult chicken and egg problem here. Bryant from Viper expressed it quite explicitly all the way back at 2315. I forget how many years ago that was. He was asked if Viper was going to use it, and he simply said, "We do not make plans based on the whims of the core devs." That essentially they were not even going to examine it until it was actually on the chain. And there's been even more rug pulls since. So I think it's difficult for any team to put the resources into examining it if it doesn't exist. And in the case of 2315, the changes that one part of Solidity demanded then caused a performance regression that another part of the Solidity team objected to later. So it's just basically difficult to do. And I almost hate to even ask at this point. There's been so many rug pulls. So this is just such a very simple thing. The mechanism has been the underlying mechanism for every proposal so far and many VMs over the years. So it simply seems almost harmless. If ever a higher level language wants to take advantage of this, either this or a follow-on will be what they need. And if we have to get buy-in from all the compiler teams, I cannot volunteer the time to do this. And I will simply leave the EVM broken in this way. I'll do what I can, but there really is a limit there. I know for the compiler I want to write, this is absolutely necessary, and I'm not the only person whose work is either completely blocked or made far more difficult by simply failing to have these industry standard instructions.
Ben?
So that was a long answer, I'm sorry. But
From the Nethermind point of view, we have tried to do sort of AIT on smart contracts. And one of the issues is with just pure random jumps everywhere. Essentially, an EVM contract works as like a 30 kilobyte single function. And that becomes next to impossible for a compiler to optimize. It can create the machine code, but it can't because the complexity can be essentially infinite with how everything jumps around. it just sort of bails on trying to optimize.
Yeah.
So it would be good to have some enforced structure to smart contracts. And that will probably also, for what Yum was talking about in terms of chunking, having that structure will fit more better with code chunking, rather than you jump completely all around the contract. It's just all go-tos. So
Yeah.
I support this.
Yeah. It goes quadratic at best and exponential at worst, and sometimes impossible, depending on what you're trying to do.
Sounds good. Any other comments or questions now synchronously on the call?
I'll point out that the validation is optional and happens at create time, so before the interpreter runs. And the instructions themselves are backwards compatible. So they run with the same semantics, whether they're in valid code, validated code, or if they're in so-called legacy code. So you only need one interpreter. It does exactly the same thing. And the only difference is that EF marked code will be validated before it's run. So for those blocks of code, other tools can know that yes, this is valid code, and I can I know that it will have the properties that I need.
Felix in chat was asking, but then can we remove the validation? I still don't get it.
I can't talk and read chat at the same time. Well, not having validation was one of the strong objections to EIP 2315. That's why it's there. And the objection to needing two interpreters is why it's optional. I don't think the core devs can force this sort of change onto the rest of the community. But neither can we wait for the community to resolve the chicken and egg problem for us. They're looking to us to fix it.
Sounds good. Then maybe a question in terms of for asynchronous follow-ups, questions client teams might have. What's the best venue to discuss these topics? Sorry, that would be a question for you, Greg.
Oh, I brought that up. I will. The magician's threads are there, and they're the primary place to put things because that's a record that lives on. I'd like to schedule a breakout call sometime in the next couple of weeks and schedule a longer period of time in 2 weeks, if that's amenable to people. But I'm not clear on the deadlines as to when we need to get this through to considered before it's too late.
Yeah, so I can speak on that. I think for the AllCodeF side, basically, we are now in the open proposal phase. We haven't yet set a deadline for this because that depends a little bit on us getting more certainty on the Amsterdam timelines, which then basically we can aim for more concrete H-star roll out and work backwards from when we need to close EAP proposals. So this will likely still be open for a while. We will definitely give, I would say, a 4-week ahead warning if before the proposal window is closed. Which also means that for now we are trying to really not yet dive into individual EIP discussion on the calls themselves yet so much, more just having them proposed, and then people can go and reach out to the EIP authors and discuss in the various places. Each Magicians is a good one. So I would for now, I mean, we can also follow up on this on the scheduling side asynchronously, but I think for now I would not want to schedule synchronous time on this in 2 weeks yet, because that would be more for once the proposing window is closed, and then the discussion starts on which of the proposed EAPs to prioritize and consider, if that makes sense.
Yeah, got it. Thanks. Then I won't hurry a whole lot on the breakout, but try and do it in the next couple weeks. And again, please contact me, and especially to try and resolve objections sooner rather than later. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. Thank you. Then, given that we only have a few minutes left, I would move on to the last 2 small items that we have, not specific to HStar, but more miscellaneous. The first one is, I think, a topic about engine API performance and potential changes to improve performance for zkVM use cases. I don't quite know how to pronounce the name there, but I think we have the author there on the call.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
So I want to have some ARDL's eyes on this execution API change introduction. So I dropped the link on chat. So it's more like optimization to enable current head real-time proving for zkVMs. So currently, zkVMs, of course, need the execution weakness to generate proofs. And to do that, we have to use the debug execution witness, the method, but it takes quite a long time to do that. On something like Get, it takes about 22 seconds to get the witness ready, and without the witness, we can't start proof generation. So this change is introducing a new route to the engine API. It's a raw HTTP route, which does the same operation the engine new payload does, but returns the execution witness alongside the payload status response. So currently it takes about 1.2 secondish, and the HREX prototype paired with Lighthouse, and with that we have sufficient time to commence on the proof for that particular block payload on the zkVM. So the goal is to have some look into this PR, some more details and some more metrics on the PR details to see what they think about it and how to go further with this. There's also a link to the HREX prototype and some other metrics. Yep, that's it.
Sounds good. Do we have clients that already looked at this, that have an opinion? Otherwise, anything for the call now?
I haven't looked into it, but just my initial impression is that zkVM is strategically important and we should optimize for it. So maybe we can prototype this EIP in Aragon. Oh, yeah, we'll try to do that.
Kev?
Yeah, Felix.
Yeah, just to provide some more context, you can think of this change as in two phases. The first one is switching out JSON RPC and using SSD plus HTTP. The second one is adding the return of the execution witness when you do engine new payload. I think the first one we have another movement for by Julio and Barnabas. So that seems like maybe a smaller lift to initially have.
Hey, Gary?
Does SSZ play into the the perceived speed benefit of adding this to a non-standard engine API? I'm just wondering why specifically SSZ.
Yes, it does. So, no, the normal serialization is JSON, which is about 2x smaller than the output we get when we use SSZ. So the smaller the witness size, the faster the witness is to transport.
Isn't the bulk of the witness RLP encoded currently? Does that JSON encoding really make that much of a difference?
Yeah, it does, practically.
It'd be interesting to see some metrics on that. I'm not opposed to SSZ. It's just that historically there's been some pushback on getting that into the client RPCs. So it'd be great to see, like, and if I missed that, it's already on the thread somewhere, just to kind of see what the performance difference is between JSON, full SSZ, and just basically that. I don't know what level of JSON is if the bulk of the witness isn't RLP encoded. It would be very interesting to see size and speed differences between the two, just kind of side by side.
Yeah, sure.
Another point there about this JSON and SSD speed differences, they vary considerably between different clients, and I would caution a little bit about adopting the worst case JSON decoding times as a reason to use. And I say this as somebody who would love for the ELs to use SSC, but to immediately switch over to especially a random like one-off SSZ method is that if I recall correctly from Julio's posted benchmarks in general, not about this, but for Engine API, it was Geth and Aragon, I believe, were the relatively slow ones. And one answer is there to fix Geth and Aragon's JSON parsers. Try that first, and then see what's left.
Yeah, I can speak to Geth. The issue is with the JSON marshaling in Go, and there's actually a PR open in Geth that like speeds it up by 10x. So it's certainly a fixable issue in Geth. Then it's pretty comparable to SSC and RLP once this fix lands. I can post the PR. I'll link to the PR.
Sure, I'm curious.
One more thing that the marshalling and non-marshalling is also an issue on the CL side if you keep it in JSON. So this is not just an issue on the EL side. And as we increase the block count, it's going to be a bigger issue. And we're going to be going back and forth basically in JSON, marshal it, unmarshal it on both sides, and then just going to keep adding time to it. But yeah,
One of the issues with the JSON RPC currently, rather than having a REST path in the URL, means we have to parse the JSON to work out what it is, because the methods in the JSON. So we have to use like a completely generic parser rather than going, oh, it's calling ETH this, therefore I can use this optimized parser that only needs to worry about those fields. So having a REST where it's telling you in the path what you should be expecting as data, opens up optimization opportunities.
We are at slightly above time already, even. This seems like, in general, like a topic that obviously is important. Does anyone have thoughts on like how to best continue this discussion beyond this call?
I think we can check the redesign that Felix mentioned on the panel to see how that's going, and to see if this can just be a subset of that. Oh, Nevermind is doing the redesign. Yeah, we can sync up with Nevermind to see like how far that's going, whether this can be a subset of that. At least the first stage, because this does also propose to add a new method that returns the witness.
Sounds good. Then probably good stopping point for now. We had one more agenda item. I think we don't really have time to go into the details. Missy, I would by default just bump it to next call if you want to give a like 10-second shout out of just for people to maybe already have a look. Now could be still the time, but
Yeah, so we just want core devs to look at the PRs, and if they have comments or reservation around it, it would be good to point that out so we can merge it. It's just 2 new methods we want to add.
sounds good. I think and one of them is ETH capabilities, and the other one is something engine get blobs before.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. If necessary, you can have some more time there next call. We also had one comment from Shaba in chat earlier, just to briefly mention it about Discovery v5. There's the comment in chat. So for people, maybe also go have a look there. I'll just copy paste the comment that Java had, just for if anyone missed it. But I think otherwise we have reached the end of the call today. Bosus Felix, whoever's behind this account right now. Do you want us comment on this or?
Hi. So I want to talk about the 774 PR on execution APIs really quick. This includes changes required for the sparse pool, and since sparse pool is as CFI'd and some clients have a draft for it, and also it is expected to reduce the bandwidth required for block propagation significantly. I would appreciate if other clients can take a look into this PR and get this merged to Glamsterdam spec. And it is also possible, no, it is not strictly required to implement entire sparse pool to support those new engine APIs. So please take a look, and I would appreciate your feedbacks. Thank you.
Sounds good. And just to confirm, that's the PR 774. Is that the one?
Yes.
Perfect. I put the link in chat one more time. Mercy had already put it, but just so people don't get confused. Perfect. Then that's all for today. Thank you all for bearing with us for the extra 7 minutes, and talk to you all in 2 weeks. Yeah, bye everyone.